I work with Fridays for Future locally and around the world. I started striking last December. I went into DC to protest during COP24, I believe. First protesting at the Department of Energy, and then protesting in a gratitude strike to the American Geophysical Union. After those first two strikes, well, the only way I can really put this is I went a little bit insane. I knew that the Maryland legislative session was coming up, and I wanted to do something big. I was raised in the Quaker Church, and I know the power of silence. I know about sitting in silence and waiting for the light to guide you. And that's what kind of inspired my insanity for last legislative session. When I decided that a great way to get change to happen would be to sit outside the legislative session and not speak. As you can say, I am normally a very quiet person, so this was fine, absolutely fine. The first day I came up and there was a CCAN rally going on where Brooke was still there at that point, and I may have slipped up a couple of times, saw Brooke and was like, hi! Oh wait. And it's hilarious to be standing up here with Brooke and the missing Nick Mosby, because if I had to say that there were two people who teased me the most that session, it would be those two. The point of the silence was, as a youth, I was feeling very frustrated. And as we have seen by the outpouring of youth activists around the world, there are a lot of youth who are very frustrated. Especially being under 18, we have very little voice in the process. We can come and testify. Many activists in Maryland can remember my first testimony singing in front of the Public Service Commission. But we are not, some people don't even consider us constituents because we can't vote. So for me, being out there was representing all of the youth in Maryland and saying, you aren't listening to us, so maybe I need my actions to speak louder than my words. I decided to work on a particular bill called the Maryland Healthy Green Amendment, which is one of those bills where you kind of, people tell you what it is and you go, we don't have that? What do you mean? So what it would do is put into the Bill of Rights in the Maryland Constitution that all Marylanders deserve a healthy and healthful environment. Again, we don't have that? What do you mean we don't have that? And it's one of those things where you're like, this should be so simple. Why can't we just, why do we have to debate this? Oh, we have to debate this. Probably the couple of most frustrating moments of not talking. Well, actually, I'll back up there and say, when you're not talking, you find there are particular moments where you get really frustrated. And what I learned is those are the moments when your voice is actually needed, where you actually have to be in that conversation, you have to be saying something, and there isn't someone else that could say it better. For me, though, the two biggest moments that came up were in the committee hearing for the bill, and then in a meeting with my senator. I will not name him. You can track down my district if you want. And those moments where I was sitting there going, you don't understand what we're asking for. You don't get it. You just don't, you haven't actually looked at what we are proposing here. You don't understand. And that is why I think it's so important for us to be out there and showing what we want. The other thing about not speaking is that I think actually being at the legislative session, if I was just there every day, it probably would have had the same effect. But the cool thing about not speaking is you bring it into spaces where people don't see this. I went to orchestra every week, not talking. My conductor had so much fun with that. And I had an interesting communication with one of my stand partner, actually, and I'm talking about what I'm doing, and he looks at me and goes, "We have a state legislator?" Yes. A good thing is, if you're going to do this, warn everybody that you're going to do it beforehand, because it can be a lot to explain on a whiteboard. And nothing like explaining the entire legislative process on a whiteboard too. I'd like you to try that. It's a good way to practice your spiel. But it allowed me to bring this into spaces that don't see activism, don't see the legislative process or what we're working on, and actually talk to folks about it and talk about the issue specifically of climate change and how much it is going to affect us and has already affected us right here and now. And with that, I will hand it back to you.